What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to TTP Sports, and today we're going to talk about Dave Dombrowski's press conference for the Philadelphia Phillies as they officially introduced him into being the next president of baseball operations. Even though the press conference that happened a couple days ago, I just wanted to take a couple days to get my overall thoughts of the signing out, because definitely from the time that it was announced, my thoughts have changed from then to today. And then when you look at the press conference, when you watched him talk, and it was a nice change of pace finally for this damn team, because it just feels like every time you see a front office guy for the Phillies go into a press conference, whether that was Matt Klentak, Andy MacPhail, John Middleton, you were just left with questioning what the hell they said and just like, where the hell is this team going? Because it just felt like these guys have no idea how to speak during a press conference. It was just that obvious. Those guys did not know how to talk, especially a guy like a John Middleton, when he's crying poor and he's losing $2 billion and all that crap. And it's ridiculous. And it was a nice change of pace to see a guy like Dave Dombrowski just say all the right things and actually know what the hell he was talking about. It was a nice change of pace indeed. And just going over what he talked about, it makes me intrigued. And there's some things that still worry me because it's still Dave Dombrowski. But still, right now, my overall thoughts, I feel a lot better about the hiring. There's just still some of those things that are lingering in my mind that still somewhat, I guess, make me nervous about this entire situation with the Phillies. So, one thing that stepped right into my mind right here is that even before the press conference, when the hiring happened, it made me a little bit confused as to why the Phillies were hiring a guy that was notorious for always building a contender, always destroying the farm system, because it felt like when you hire a guy like Dave Dombrowski, you think you're closer than you actually are. And that's what the Phillies gave off to me. It felt like they made this signing because they thought they were closer than we actually thought they were. But he shed some light during the press conference. He said right now the Phillies are not in a rebuild mode, which honestly they should not be, because that's the last thing you want to do. They are in a retool mode, which made me feel a little bit better, because Dave Dombrowski, like I said, he is known for going out there and spending money. He is known for going out there, trading away a lot of prospects to get some big names in return to help build your roster to build a contender to compete for a World Series. And right now, where the Phillies are at in a state, they have no prospect system, and they're not really in a position, I guess, to spend a ton of money to build a contender, because there are so many holes to fill on the roster, and there are so many holes in the prospect system right now. There's really not that many prospects you can be excited for, because there's maybe like one, two, and like right now you can't guarantee the excitement for them because they're baseball prospects and they're really just unpredictable at this point. Thankfully, we got lucky with a guy like Alec Bohm, and he came up, even though right now he's definitely not considered a prospect. He is now a Major League Baseball player. He is going to be one of these key pieces that Dave Dombrowski is going to build around the foundation for the Philadelphia Phillies. And if you look at the rest of the foundation, you got Bryce Harper, Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Alec Bohm. Do you consider Rhys Hoskins as one of them? If a trade offer did come up for Rhys Hoskins, I would definitely consider trading him. Just because I feel in for a state of Alec Bohm, he's a terrible defender right now. He is an elite hitter. He is a terrible defender. And playing him over at third base, even though the glove can get better, right now, it's just that, do I want Alec Bohm at third base for the foreseeable future? I'd rather have him at first base. And then also the question comes in, right now with the universal DH, MLB has no idea if it's going to be in the National League or not. That's just the weird state that baseball is in right now. It was very successful during the shortened season this past year, but for some reason, Major League Baseball just doesn't know if it wants to use the universal DH for the foreseeable future, and I honestly believe they should, but right now they're just in that confusing state where it just, I have no idea. So we're stuck in that mindset right now, but yeah, you have those key pieces that you should build around. That means you still got to look for a second baseman. What does that mean for Scott Kingery? Shortstop, what does that mean for Gene Segura? Do the Phillies look to try to move him out? Maybe try to re-sign Didi Gregorius? or do you look to go in another direction? Same thing for the outfield. You do have Andrew McCutchen, even though his contract does expire after the next season. So do you look to keep Andrew McCutchen for the foreseeable future, or do you let his contract run out and you get even more money back into being able to spend it throughout the entire team? And who's your starting center fielder? Do you go out there with a guy like Adam Hazley? Do you go out there with a guy like a Roman Quinn? It's not really built for success right there. So there's definitely a lot of key pieces to build around. And Dombrowski did talk about the possibility of bringing back JT Realmuto. That's definitely one of the main things that the Phillies want to do. Try to bring him back. It's just that right now the difficulty with JT Realmuto is right now he's most likely demanding an extreme amount of money in the free agency market. He definitely wants that 7 to 8 year type of contract, definitely $100+ million in total. And honestly, if I'm looking at this at whole, just the way the free agency market is shaping up this year, just because we're in such a weird situation with the pandemic, I don't think JT is definitely not going to get the money that he wants. He's definitely going to get something below that he wants. So I still feel like the Phillies are going to creep in and maybe just luck out in getting JT Realmuto back, and maybe having someone that's well known in David Dombrowski, maybe that makes JT Realmuto feel better about re-signing in Philadelphia, just because if I can understand him not wanting to re-sign here when John Middleton, Matt Klentak, Andy McPhail, those guys are running the show, because it's just like, I want to get out of here. These guys have no idea what they're doing. So maybe it makes them feel a little bit better knowing that there's a guy in the front office that knows what he's doing. And also, just for the instance of JT Realmuto, it does help the Phillies a lot more that the New York Mets went out and signed a guy like James McCann, which honestly I thought would have been a nice option too if the Phillies didn't go the way of JT Realmuto. But this helps the Phillies out. They signed James McCann, 4 years, $40 million, and it takes the Mets, who were a team that's going to be known for this offseason going to be spending a lot of money since they got their new owner. And he basically said, we're going to go out there and get the big guys. We're going to go out there and help build this team. So expect the Mets to probably sign some other big name, whether that's Trevor Bauer, whether that's George Springer. Just keep an eye out for the Mets, because if you look at this entire division as a whole, you got the Braves. They are the team to beat in the NL East. They are the team that's most likely going to win the National League division, the NL East division. If you look at the Mets, they're an up-and-coming team. Let's see what their owner does in spending money right now. Let's see how he can build them into a better contender. The Miami Marlins, they're an up-and-coming team. They surprised everyone last season. They're young, they're exciting, and who knows what can happen with them. The Nationals, like I keep saying, they had a lot of people sit out during the 2020 season. Some of those people come back. Juan Soto, who had an amazing 2020 season last year, he's definitely looking to build off that, so watch out for the Nationals. It's going to be a tough division. It's going to be a really tough division right now, and I don't see the Phillies getting over that hump right now. They're still that third, fourth place team, even considering a fifth place team right now. They're that team right now that can't get over the hump of getting over 500. They're really just a borderline 500 team, below 500 team right now, and they don't have the pieces to help them get over that hump and get into the playoffs. And that's what Dave Dombrowski right now, it sounds like he's talking about with this retool mode. Build around the people, build up the prospect system, and maybe in the near future when the prospect system does get built up, maybe that's when you start seeing Dave Dombrowski move some pieces, make some trades, bring some big guys back. And one thing that did stand out to me as well is talking about one of the prospects in our system that we drafted this year in the first round, Micah Bell. Maybe he sounded very high on him, which is a good thing and maybe also a bad thing, because it made me think right now, okay, he really likes Micah Bell, so maybe that's something that's good because he sees him as a future starter for this team, or he likes him so much that he sees so much trade value in this kid to where he can put him in a big trade. So it's one of those two options, but right now, with the way that he's sounding, building up the prospect system, trying to retool this team, maybe it sounds like Micah Bell is in his plans for the future of this franchise. But one of the things that also worries me is that before Dave Dombrowski took the Phillies job, he was really invested in trying to get a baseball team in Nashville. That's what he has been doing since he got fired from the Boston Red Sox. So I think he's still an advisor for Music City Baseball, which is the operation to try to get a major league team in Nashville. So how many years is he actually going to be committed to the Philadelphia Phillies? That's the question mark right there. Because this team right now, I don't think they're 2 years away. They might be 2, 3, 4 years away from even becoming a better contender than they already are. So is Dave Dombrowski going to be like, after 4 or 5 years, he's done and he's going back to Music City Baseball to try to get a baseball team down there? We just have no idea at this point. Does he build this team, make him into a contender, maybe try to get into the playoffs, and then he just calls it quits and goes right back to Nashville? We just have no idea how, at this point, how committed he's going to be for the Phillies for the foreseeable future. That's going to be the question mark as well. But I feel like it's going to be more exciting right now just because he's telling us what direction the team is going in. Because, like I said, when the signing was made, it was very confusing what the Phillies were considering the direction they were going into. Because they're a team that's not built to win now. They have clearly stated they're not going to go out and spend major money this offseason just because of the entire money crunch that they're in due to the pandemic. So it's another retool year, build through the draft, build up the prospect system, try to build around guys like Harper, like Bohm, Nola, Wheeler. You definitely got to try to do that. And honestly, I would see Dave Dombrowski working into the trade market a little bit because you need to find ways to build this team still for next season. Who's going to be your starting shortstop? Who's going to be your starting second baseman? Who's your starting center fielder? Are you going to bring back JT Realmuto? And if you don't, who's going to be your starting catcher? There are still a lot of holes around this team. They're definitely not going to be a contender for next season. Maybe they'll be a little bit more exciting, but I'm not saying contender. I'm not going that far. Definitely not. They need to fill so many holes on this team. And right now you have the foundation. You have Harper. You got Bohm. You got Nolan Wheeler. And hey, maybe you consider Zach Eflin as part of that team to build around. But even though I don't consider Zach Eflin, I would consider him more as a 4 or 5 starter. You definitely need that. Definitely need that 1-2-3 punch. Right now, the Phillies just have a 1-2 punch. Zach Eflin last year, he was fantastic. He was great. But right now, I don't see him as a top of the rotation type of guy. I see him as a good guy, a good quality guy that can pitch in the bottom of the rotation. You still have to figure out what the hell to do with the bullpen. The bullpen was absolutely terrible. You got to figure out what the hell to do with them. Because you do have 2 interesting pieces right there, maybe to build around. You got Jojo Romero, who came up last season. He was fantastic until he struggled around the late part of the season. You have Connor Brogdon, who struggled at first coming up, but then during his second stint with the Phillies, he showed a little bit of what he can actually do. So definitely you have 2 type of pieces right there to build around. And going back to the starting rotation, you got to deal with another year of Vince Velasquez. that basically sums up right there what the state the Phillies are in right now. That they're using Vince Velasquez most likely as a 5th starter, which is not the bright side right there. And also, does their 3rd, 4th starter become Spencer Howard? And right now, like I said, I don't want to give up on the kid. But right now, he hasn't shown anything to that he could become a future ace of this ball club, which he was projected to be, where the hype was around for this kid. Because when you look around the entire league during this past season, there were so many young pitchers that came up and dominated. So many young pitchers, and I mean a lot. And Spencer Howard was probably one of the few that did not come up and dominate. I mean, he definitely has some stuff. He has an electric fastball, and that's one thing that Dave Dombrowski talked about too. We need pitchers on this team that can throw gas. Definitely. They need to throw gas. Aaron Nola, he's not a guy that can throw gas, but he is a good 2 starter. If you have an ace above Aaron Nola, and Aaron Nola is your number 2 starter, you're in a pretty good place in your starting rotation. I still believe that the Phillies need an ace. Aaron Nola, to me, is not full ace material just because he doesn't have what the usual starting ace pitcher of baseball is today. They're a guy that can pound the strike zone and they can throw gas 97, 98, 99, 100. Zach Wheeler can reach that level, and he was fantastic last year, but I don't see Zach Wheeler as an ace either. He's a good number 2, number 3 type of starter. And also the one thing that intrigued me that Dombrowski was talking about is the way that they're going to use analytics, because Matt Klentak, he brought an entire analytics team to the Phillies. Same thing with John Middleton, because that's where baseball is going to now. It's going to be very heavy analytics. And there are a lot of people that don't like it, which is very understandable. I'm more of a guy that I I do like analytics, but I also do feel like you need some of that gut feeling just because I don't like teams that use analytics like the Bible, like what the Tampa Bay Rays did, even though they were very successful because of it. But maybe it was those sticking to analytics way too much is what cost him one of those games in the World Series. I'm not going to go down that stretch right now, but I do like what he said that he's going to try to mix the analytics with that eye test, with that gut feeling type of situation. And maybe that could be a good thing for the Phillies. Who knows? Because using analytics, Gabe Kapler, it didn't really work out for them. Maybe if you mix the analytics, you mix the eye test, maybe that you're mixing the best of both worlds right there. Who knows what could happen in that state, but they are definitely, I would say, still going to be a more analytically driven team. But then also having that eye test, having that gut feeling, maybe that's something that can also benefit them as well. So just going into this season entirely, I'm more comfortable right now having Dave Dombrowski as the president right now. But there's still things that are lingering into my mind. When he builds up the prospect system, is he going to be destroying the prospect system after that? This entire JT Realmuto thing. This entire, is he going to be committed to the Phillies for a long term just because of the entire situation going on with Nashville? So there are still many question marks. Still a lot of question marks with this hiring right now. I feel a lot better about it right now. I feel a lot more optimistic than when it was originally announced. So right now, I'm just going to take it day by day, and I'm just going to see what he can do to help this team become a better baseball team for the future. Because I still feel like right now, this team is two maybe 3 years out right now from being an actual contender. Because like I said, they still got to build their foundation. They got to build from within. And always spending money at free agents, spending money all around the place. That's not going to help you win consistently. Just going out there spending money. That's what happened with the Boston Red Sox in 2018, which Dave Dombrowski was a part of. He spent so much money on the pitching, so much money on every specific place. And look what happened after he was fired. The Red Sox were forced in a position where they had to trade Mookie Betts because they couldn't re-sign him. And really, the Red Sox, they really don't have a prospect system right there. Even though there were some prospects that were a part of that 2018 Red Sox team that Dave Dombrowski had a part of. He trusted in those prospects, and he called them up, and he gave them a bigger role. So there are signs that he does use prospects to help build the team from within. You can even go back to when he was on the Detroit Tigers. He built that franchise from the ground up. He retooled them. He brought them into a contender, brought them to 2 World Series. Even though they didn't win those World Series, those were really good Tigers teams, definitely. Even though they're still facing the problems that was still there when Dombrowski was there, they're still going over that and still trying to get over that because right now they're just a bottom feeder team. They're just not that good right now, and they're just piling on the top round draft picks to try to build up that prospect system. And when Dave Dombrowski was on the Marlins, when he won the World Series in 97, they weren't a by-all, end-all team. They were a bubble team, made the wild card, and they got hot at the right time. And the ownership after that told them to blow it up because after they won that World Series, they weren't really that good. And even though it's funny when they left, they eventually won another World Series in 2003. So that's a funny thing right there. He also helped out those Expos teams in the 90s. When I know a lot of people are still complaining about the 94 Expos team that should have won the World Series, but due to the entire player strike and lockout, they didn't finish that season. So it's still going to be very interesting right now on how Dave Dombrowski is going to build this team. How is he going to do his job right now? So that's going to be the one intriguing thing to look forward to. It definitely is going to be. I'm more excited than I was when the hiring happened. So right now, I guess I'm looking more forward to the moves that he is going to make. Who knows, maybe the Phillies do luck into signing JT Realmuto, but then you're going to have to figure out how to build around the rest of them. How are you going to fill the holes that are in this organization right now? There's so many holes in fielding, so many holes in the bullpen, and that's going to be Dave Dombrowski's job to figure that out. So, what are your thoughts right now on the Dave Dombrowski hiring? Do you feel a little bit better from when they announced it? Do you feel better after the interview that he had? So I want to hear your thoughts about that. So don't forget to leave a comment down in the comment section. Don't forget to drop a like. Don't forget to check out the Painted Lines, which I am a part of. Those links will be in the description below. Don't forget to check out the Florida Podcast merchandise website. That link will also be in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to follow me on my different social medias. And I will see you next time.